Good Friday morning and welcome to the David and Chuck Show. Good morning, Chuck. How are you, my friend?
Good morning. I'm fine. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas to you. And wow, I can't believe it's December the 20th. First round of college football playoffs starts tonight. We got bowl games kind of around, but people don't really care about those anymore. Man, some really good football games coming up, Chuck. Starting tonight at 8 o'clock on ABC. Indiana travels in-state to Notre Dame.
Yep.
I am really looking forward to watching this football game. I'm really pulling hard for Indiana.
Right. All four of the matchups, first round matchups, are really good, and they get you excited. And this one right here to kick it off, Battle of Indiana. Where Bloomington is just a short drive north to South Bend. I think they're two evenly matched football teams, which leads you to think it's going to be a very exciting football game.
Yeah, and just we'll put up the schedule real quick. Tonight at 8 o'clock on ABC, Notre Dame is Indiana and Notre Dame. Tomorrow, Saturday, starting at noon on TNT. Right now, it's on TNT. SMU traveling to Penn State. Weather could be an issue. Weather could be an issue tonight. Then at 4 o'clock on TNT tomorrow, Clemson is traveling to Texas. Don't sleep on the Tigers. This before we get into the breakdown of it. Don't sleep on the Tigers. They've got a chip on their shoulder. And then tomorrow night in Columbus, Ohio, the Vols are traveling up to play Ohio State. And according to the Apple Maps, for about 6 or 7 hours yesterday, they're playing in Neyland North. That was one of the funniest things I saw yesterday. The Tennessee folks somehow broke into the Apple Map feature and changed the name of the shoe up there to Neyland North. And there's going to be a lot of orange, according to everything we're seeing and reading and understanding, even coming from the Ohio State Athletic Department. There's going to be a ton of volunteer fans in that stadium. And
I saw a breakdown of the percentages that there could possibly be 41% of the crowd could be wearing Tennessee orange. 41% in that stadium. And that's shocking.
That is shocking. That is shocking. And that goes back to what, Jonathan's big thing is he's really, again, he says he's not a homer, but he is, and he has a right to be. They're really frustrated that they're not playing in Knoxville, that they've kind of set this thing up a little differently and made a really a better path for Penn State to get to the national championship game than anyone else. And that kind of threw things off. But we'll get to that later. So tonight, Indiana and Notre Dame, 8 o'clock ABC. I'm not one for the point spreads. That's more you and Jonathan and Coach Matthews' top thing. 6.5 point favorite, Notre Dame. That really doesn't mean a lot to me. But I think, and we've talked about this for the last week and a half or so, I really think that it's fair that Notre Dame is the favorite, Chuck. I really, and they probably should be. But I also believe that every bit of the pressure is on Notre Dame. Look, Indiana is not, according to the pundits and when the season started and all that, Indiana's not supposed to be here. They are playing with house money. Now, they don't want to lose, and they're going to play their guts out, and I think it's going to be a really good football game. But I think if it's close, if you get to halftime and it's still a football game, and you get in and deeper into the third quarter and early to the fourth, if it's a game where it's a one-possession game, I think advantages Indiana because all that pressure everything is on Notre Dame because they're supposed to win.
Yeah, that's been the MO out of Notre Dame, with the exception of the Northern Illinois game, which they stubbed their toe at home against Northern Illinois because it went to halftime. It was close. They went to the third quarter, and Northern Illinois was within shot. And then in the fourth quarter, Northern Illinois somehow managed to get that game, that go-ahead field goal, and then block Notre Dame's. So, the fact remains is that's the MO of Notre Dame's loss. Since then, Notre Dame has demolished the opponents. It has one of the weakest strength of schedules. They're 57th, but they're playing Indiana, who's 51st. So you got two teams that have not really had a tough schedule. And that's the one sticking point with me, is I can't get that loss to Northern Illinois at Notre Dame Stadium out of my mind, is that team is capable of playing against a weak opponent or a weaker opponent. They could play bad. And regardless of when it was in the season, Indiana's only loss was a thumping against Ohio State, a much more physical, much more talented football team. So the question to me going into this game is what team learned the most out of their loss? What team recognized what we got to fix, and can they fix them? Because sometimes when you play a weak schedule like Notre Dame and you lose a game, but then you start playing, cupcakes all the way through the end, you really mask, did you really fix what the problem was? So I think this game will be one of, if not the most entertaining football game. I believe it'll follow the what you're saying about going into the second half, close, a tight football game. I think it's going to end up being a 1-point game. And I think the fans, to kick off this 12-team playoff, what a game to do so. Have no idea. I know it's going to be cold, 33, I think it was. I looked at it at kickoff, and snowing.
Yeah, I'm bringing up the weather. I'm bringing up the live weather thing right now, Chuck, just to because kickoff is what, 8?
8 o'clock. And look, there are two teams that are already acclimated to the inclement weather. They've practiced in it. They walked the class in it. That's a big thing for everybody to understand. Being from Michigan, is that when you talk about going out and playing, well, you practice in it. Okay, well, that's good. You can, couple practices, you can get acclimated. But when every day you got to get out and go to class or go to the dining hall or whatever the case may be, you get acclimated really, it takes a couple weeks. And once you get those 2 weeks in, you're acclimated to that bad weather. Yeah. So there's the advantage to the northern team, but we got two northern teams playing each other. So
yeah,
I agree with you 100%, David. It's going to be cold. It's going to be fun to watch. I hope it does snow, because fans should see this. College football and snow, you'll love it. But the bottom line is that they're both acclimated to it, so it'll just come to a better football team.
And I think that one of the things that I believe is that, just in my research, is that's overlooked, is you got it. Now, Ohio State did a pretty good job of running the ball. Not a great job, but a pretty good job against Indiana. Nobody else has done a good job. Their run defense is one of the top in the nation. Indiana's run defense is one of the top in the country. So I do believe that if they force Notre Dame into a throwing game, slight advantage there goes to Indiana. The kicking game, I think, is a wash. Overall, when you look at the roster and you look at the talent level, a lot of the guys that are playing for Indiana are guys that came from James Madison. those guys that were recruited at James Madison weren't recruited by Notre Dame's and Ohio State's and Tennessee's and Texas's and Georgia's. So maybe not as an abundance of just overall talent, but they got kids that can play, and they play with an attitude and of their coach. And I just think that my heart wants to say they're going to win the football game, but I think it's going to be really close. And if it goes, and again, I said that little thing yesterday that pressure is either going to burst your pipes or pressure is going to make diamonds. How does Notre Dame handle the pressure? Because I still believe that house money is easier to play with.
Agreed. It's one of the games that I looked at. I think if you were trying to forecast something, it'd be 4 touchdowns each or 3 touchdowns each. And so when you got that close of a team and, opponents are really close, then the advantage is something you can't forecast. Key penalties, turnovers, and I think mistakes. So those 3 areas that you're going to look at is who makes them. You don't know.
Yeah.
You just don't know. To me, I think it's at the highest level, 28-27. And I go give Indiana the advantage for me because I'm rooting for them. I'd like to see the same thing. Marty Clark, who passed away, was Indiana's assistant AD. Been with Indiana, and how ironic is he passed away, and he's a Tuscola graduate and went to Western Carolina and then ended up at Indiana for 30 years. And maybe they have the guardian angel of Marty Clark with them. Everybody knows Marty and what kind of quality individual is. So you kind of root, John Truitt and all the Tuscola faithful are all rooting for Indiana. Everybody I talked to that went to Indiana know Marty Clark. So it's sort of like the Cinderella story, but you can't rely on being Cinderella and just be given the game. You got to go out and take it away from Notre Dame.
You got to go play. Absolutely, you got to go play, and look, Coach Cignetti will have them ready, and they will play their guts out, win, lose, or draw. But I think it's going to be a close football game. And don't, for 1 second, in my opinion, think that it's just a first-round blowout, because I just don't see that happening. Now, tomorrow in State College, Pennsylvania, noon kickoff, and that's on TNT. At noon, it's going to be 25 degrees with 14-mile-an-hour winds, no precipitation. And that's going to put you wind chill factor 10, 11. Now, they're playing SMU from Dallas, Texas. You know what I'm saying, Chuck?
Right.
So,
I know exactly what you're saying.
So.
You like the snow? No. Why not? Can you say snow?
So is that, hold on, is this SMU? Is this SMU tomorrow?
That's their new helmet. That's what their coaches. I got to tell you, just briefly before we get into this, Monday I watched a replay of my former college teammate at Alma College, Tony Annese, who's Division II national powerhouse at Ferris State. They hosted a game Saturday night against Slippery Rock, which is out of Pennsylvania. Semifinals. Winner goes to the Natty. And Slippery Rock come out just on fire, and a combination. Ferris State played poorly in the first half, but they took, down 38-27 at one point and ended up winning game 48-38. But Tony Annese come out with similar hat on. He had his ears covered and that hat sticking up on top like the Mad Hatter at LSU. He used to wear just barely on top of his head. He made sure he had a parka on. Hey. It gets cold on the sidelines when it was 22 degrees at kickoff.
Yep.
And that sun went down and they had snow everywhere. You couldn't see the campus, the grass, or anything. You just saw snow everywhere. and ended up that the kids were southern area from Pennsylvania came up to the, if you look at the hand, it's up in this area over here. It's upper mitt, if we call it, in the upper mitt, and they tightened up. They weren't as fast. They didn't play fast in the second half. The weather got to them. You could see it. They weren't throwing the ball as well. So that was a game where I was saying, if you watch this, this is where weather affects a team in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
And so this leading, and by the way, Ferris State going on to play Valdosta State, 1 and 2 in the country for the Division II national title. Tony going for his third national championship. But SMU they will be heavily affected in the second half. You get through that, then here's why it happens this way. You're really cold. You go into halftime, and what have they got going in the locker room? The heat. Mm-hmm. Then you got to in there for 20 minutes, and you get that frostbite feeling out of you. And then you got to go back out in that cold. And that, if you're not acclimated to it, it's like rigor mortis. You don't run as fast, you don't throw as fast, you don't tackle as hard. It's just and pursue. So I think the advantage in this football game, like the baby whining about the snow, is that I think in the second half it'll take its toll.
Kind of like this. One more time.
You like the snow? No. Why not? Can you say snow?
That's beautiful. That is.
And by the way, we feel like we're smart. We think we know what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So, in case anybody wants to know, just because it's graphics Friday, so. We know stuff.
Yep, we know.
But anyway,
we know it, but we might not be right, but we know it.
We at least we think we do. But I think it's going to be. Look, I think all serious and being serious for a second. Southern Methodist, I think they're kind of like Clemson. They feel very disrespected here. Weather is going to be an issue. Okay, seriously, that's why that's there. And weather is going to be an issue. But more than the cold is how hard is the wind going to blow?
Right.
Because that will affect SMU a heck of a lot more than it will Penn State in the throwing game. And if they're able to throw, they run a quick game that the pass rush doesn't affect them that much because it's foot in the ground, balls out, foot in the ground, balls out. They get rid of the ball quick. Their passing plays are basically running plays, and they run a whole lot of plays. So the wind, to me, is going to be more of an issue than the cold, even though in the cold is going to be bitter. But if it's windy, definite advantage to Penn State. They're playing at home. That place is going to be crazy. And Coach Franklin, quite frankly, Coach Franklin has a lot to prove because he's never won this type of football game, ever, against any opponent at any place. So, quite frankly, as I said, a lot is on, how's he going to handle the pressure?
Absolutely. That's an astute analysis of the win factor in the game, is that it is a disadvantage for SMU having to deal with cold wind, not just wind, cold wind.
Yeah.
Frozen wind. That's a completely different animal when you play in that. And so that's a very astute analysis on that, how that affects. You have to understand when you get popped on a day like that, at a night like that, when you get hit hard, it hurts more than it was on a warm, hot day. And it stays with you the whole game. Bumps and bruises turn into minor injuries where guys are limping off. I mean, that hurt. And then they kind of warm it up a little bit and the guy gets back in. So when you get those bumps and bruises and you try to play, they'll tighten up faster in the cold weather. And Penn State has an elite defense that will hit you and strike you. Now, here's the thing that I want to add to your analysis about the win. This is why, in particular, the Big Ten, Northern teams spend all season rushing the football. They make their bones on rushing the football. It's because when you get on cold days, when you're throwing it all over the place, you're less effective in cold weather than you are in hot weather. So what you do on cold weather games is you run the football. So if you've been running the football all year, you may not be producing a lot of points. But on these cold days, you can be productive rushing the football. And that pounding every single play that Penn State's offensive line will be issuing to SMU play after play after play. It will be, initially in my eyes, it will be a low-scoring, close game until the second half. And that constant pounding and rushing the football and that defense just tattooing anybody with the ball, I think that will take its toll and it could get away from SMU in the second half.
Okay. And then at 4 p.m. at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, the Tigers of Clemson are traveling down to play Texas. Man, I don't have to be in the locker room to know what Dabo's saying. He's basically, I do the same thing. Boys, they don't think you should be here. They don't think you're good enough. I've sat here and listened to the ESPN pundits basically say that you're a joke, that we shouldn't be here, that it's a disgrace that we're here. Let's go. Let's go. And now the quarterback for Clemson has played a lot better. The kid from Texas has been hurt. Probably, the truth be known, the best quarterback on the field is the backup at Texas. But he's untested. But I think he's going to play. And I think he might play a lot tomorrow night. I think Arch Manning is going to play a lot because I think Ewers is hurt. I think he's hurt pretty good here. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to do what, because I watched, and again, I don't watch that stuff, but I saw a clip of Feinbaum basically just laughing at Clemson, literally laughing and saying it's a joke and it's an embarrassment that they're there. And I would take that personal if it were me.
I agree with you 100%. If you look at it and you're a football fan, which we are, we're fans, and we know stuff, okay? You look at the game with Clemson at Texas, and you get, clearly Texas is a much better football team. It hasn't been a good year, but yet Clemson found a way to somehow win the ACC, because if they would have lost that game, they wouldn't have been here. No. The only way they're in here is because they captured the ACC championship. I've said long before that game, the ACC championship, if we're honest, if we're intellectually honest, the ACC truly doesn't deserve one team in, let alone two, because it's just not that strong of a football conference. But yet we're going to allow one to get in, being the ACC champion. And but two got in, to our surprise. Two got in, and now it's Clemson's turn. So I sit back and I think, this is going to be just handily Texas. Then I'm starting to think, hold on one second. I remember last year in the semifinal game where Texas played Washington in the semifinal, And Washington it was like Texas played a completely different game. I do think there's some issues on Texas team with Archie, because constantly the media is like, Archie's got to make a decision to stay there, because Ewers is trying to think, am I going to NFL draft or am I going to stay another year? If he stays another year, Archie's gone. So there may be a reason and some conflict within the quarterback room. And then I think nobody's giving – that's when Dabble does his thing. Because when he did the 2 championships against Alabama, when we started this 14 playoff, and they got in, nobody gave Clemson a shot. And the first game they played Alabama, it was like, 48-42? They wouldn't go away. And clearly Alabama was a much better football team. And then I think it was the next year or the next time they played, it was a year or 3, the 2 years later, that's when they stunned Alabama and won that game. This is a good football team, maybe not a great team, but Dabble's experienced enough in these games how to get guys right here, win that. And that gives them a fighting chance to make it a close game. And if it is a close game and they can get Texas to make a mistake in the fourth quarter, they could upset them.
Yeah, I think so. Probably player for player, talent for talent. You're going to say Texas, but again, he's dangerous in these situations, and I know that the guys with the tiger paw on their helmet are going to be ready.
Right.
I truly, truly do. Now, Columbus, Ohio, in Ohio Stadium. Neyland North. That was one of the funniest things. That was hilarious. I sent you the screenshot because that came from WBR News in Knoxville. That wasn't a fake thing. That was really WBR News said, look what, dude. So Neyland North, there are going to be a ton of volunteer fans in the stadium. But here's the deal. Once you kick off and once you get past the emotion of the start, then it's just football. It's man on man. I give a slight advantage to Tennessee because, number one, they play outstanding defense. One of the best defenses in the country, if not the best defense in the country. They're violent. They rally to the ball. They're really good. I give them a little advantage there. Again, everybody thinks that they're this throwing team. They're not. They rely on number 6, one of the best running backs in the nation. And according to Jonathan, which I put some stock into this, that in the past 10 years or so, absolutely the best football player to put a power tee on his head is number 6, Samson. He's and not just as a football player, but as a guy, is a guy that wants to be that guy on the field, but represents the tee the right way. And I think if the weather is an issue and it comes down to man on man and they can play defense, number 6 is going to be a difference maker for Tennessee. I don't think this game comes down to the quarterbacks if it's windy. I think it comes down to the guys up front on Tennessee's defensive front and what they can do running the football. I think it's going to be a really good football game in one hell of an environment. All joking aside, it's going to be electric in there at the start. And I think Coach Day, every one of these games is intriguing for certain reasons. But, hey, you got a guy here that's, 11-1, that's feeling so much pressure that he's basically there's certain fashions up there in Columbus, Chuck, that have said, hey, man, if he doesn't win the national championship, he's out of here. And we don't even know if we want him back if he wins the national championship.
Right.
The pressure he's under is unbelievable. And I just know, again, not as a fan, because fans can sit at home and go, yeah, that's pressure. Man, I saw it firsthand in my own family. In those programs, when you're the focal point of the bad, man, there's not words, Chuck. You were there. You understand.
Right.
There's not words to describe the amount of pressure that you feel 24 hours a day. If you go to the grocery store, if you go to McDonald's, if you go to the gas station, if you just walk in on campus, it is unlike anything that most human beings could not and would not truly understand. Coach Day is under a hell of a lot of pressure, Chucky.
I think the pregame gamesmanship was won by Tennessee, obviously. Whether it's 40 to 50% of the fans are Tennessee fans. I saw a thing that said 41% expected Tennessee fans in Ohio Stadium because they were buying Ohio State tickets because that many fans, which you're talking about 100,000 plus fans. So you're talking 50,000, 41,000 fans from Tennessee are going to be in those fans, and they're going to be loud. And, so that'll be 60,000, 60,000 fans, Ohio State. So they've given up a lot of their tickets because of the disenchantment with Coach Day. Now, will that have an effect in the game? I don't think so. Will the weather have an effect of the game? I don't think so.
Let me kind of stop you for a second. But stay right on that train of thought. Kickoff, 24 degrees,
right.
11 mile an hour winds.
Right.
Okay.
And being from Michigan, that wind, I've said it with Penn State, the wind is the most important. If it's calm, then you can play through it. But the wind.
You like the snow?
No.
I didn't mean for that to happen. I apologize. Keep talking.
But I will tell you this. To me, what is going to decide this football game is, has Coach Day lost his locker room, or has he won his locker room back? It's what is happening in the locker room. Do they believe in Coach Day? They're going to go out and execute the game plan. If they are united, and I don't know if they are, or I don't know if they're not. If they're united, they'll win that football game. If they're divided, Tennessee could smoke them.
Let me ask you a question and a statement in the question. Obviously, Michigan exposed that Ohio State is not as physical as Coach Day or everyone thought they were. As Coach Day wanted people to think, and everybody thought that they were. The strength of Tennessee is running the football between the tackles and their front seven on defense. Is that going to be as big an emphasis or a biggest point on the outcome of the football game as I think it is?
It could if it's advantageous that Tennessee takes advantage and gets to do that. If Tennessee dominates the running game and they on their front, their front seven on defense is just sticking it to Ohio State. And as the game goes and it's a tight football game, it's how quick he loses his team. Oh, here we go again. That kind of thing. Losing your team during a game is dramatically more impact on the outcome of the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Then losing it in the locker room and then coming out and playing.
Because I want to go back to what you were talking about the weather a while ago and going in at halftime and stuff. And this just popped in my mind. And when Jonathan was in the 8th grade, he had been charting for Coach Nolan since he was like in the 6th grade, always on the sidelines. They when they're calling plays and the year that he was in 8th grade, Irwin had probably at least the best team in the west of the state in the 3A. Man, we had 2 running backs that were just better than you. And we played a home playoff game, and it was brutal, brutally cold and brutally windy. And it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago. After the second or third hit, not the second but just the second on our running backs, it was pretty much over. All they wanted to do was find a place on the sidelines in a tarp or in a coat to put on. So, when you talk about the wind and you talk about the hits, especially in the game, I just don't think that the Indiana Notre Dame game is going to have as much because of where they're from. But I think the SMU and the Tennessee games could go back and have a big factor into what you're talking about. The wind in a cold wind, and you get your ass smacked around a little bit. That's what are you made of?
Exactly. And I look at the Tennessee, the one disadvantage is because I don't see a lot of disadvantages. They played poorly against Arkansas, Tennessee did, but yet Ohio State played poorly against Michigan. They have Tennessee lost by 7 to a very good, what I think is the team that's going to win the whole thing, Georgia. And then Ohio State lost to Oregon. So they have a bad loss. So they're capable of not playing. But the bad loss, the worst loss was Ohio State at home losing to Michigan, a 6-5 Michigan team that now is 7-5. But with that being said, what I do see is I'm the Samoan. I am Oliva. Nico Iamaleava. He's a Samoan.
California kid.
How he plays. Because I'm telling you, how he plays in that cold weather. It's easy to stand there if you're going to run the football. All he's doing is handing it off. But when you got it, but all that sweat before, and then you start to hand the football off, that sweat turns to coldness on your body. Pretty soon you're kind of slower throwing the football. And so if you need to throw the football, he may be the weak link on Tennessee. Maybe. Okay. It depends on how effective Tennessee can run the football against Ohio State. But I think no matter what, you got two evenly very talented football teams coming in. But the one that has been exposed right now is all eyes on is who is the locker room lost or is the locker room won back on the Ohio State side? And we don't know that until they start playing.
Yeah. So let me, your brother Kevin just text Pure Michigan. That's in reference to the wind and the weather.
Oh yeah.
Let me do this here real quick, Chuck. I'm going to add, and we'll just tell me the winner, okay? And I'll tell you who I think. All right. Indiana, Notre Dame.
Indiana 28-27.
Okay. I'm going to say Indiana wins. SMU, Penn State.
Penn State 35, SMU 14.
I'm going to go Penn State, which I hate saying that.
I know. I get
Clemson, Texas.
I think Clemson scares the hell out of Texas, but Texas wins the game 38-33.
And I'm going to say Texas. I hate saying that too. Tennessee, Ohio State.
I'm going to say just like this, okay? I have never rooted for Ohio State, and I won't start. So I'm going to say Tennessee wins this football game 30-27.
I'll say Tennessee. Now,
I'm not rooting for Ohio State. I'm not starting it.
I cannot believe that they set the bracket up that Penn State plays SMU and then Boise if they win.
Right.
To go all the way to the semifinals. I just don't get it.
They set them up, but at the same time, there's just that mindset that Franklin can't win that big game. And Boise's got nothing to lose.
Yeah. House money, as I say.
House money, as you say.
but so Clemson, Texas winner plays Arizona State in the Peach Bowl down in Atlanta. The Tennessee, Ohio State winner plays in the Rose Bowl against number 1 Oregon. SMU, Penn State winner plays in the Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. And the Indiana, Notre Dame winner goes to the Sugar Bowl to play Georgia. Georgia is going to play with a backup quarterback. The starter, Beck, is done. He's finished. And, look, I never thought he was all that in a bag of chips, but, man, you hate to see a kid end it like that because that's a brutal injury because, we've never really talked about it and stuff, but that injury is basically the same thing that happened to Jonathan when he had his 4th surgery on his arm. And that is a brutal rehab. I mean, a brutal rehab because, man, it tears everything in there. And that's basically the same hit that Jonathan took. And, man, I hate it for the kid. I really do. And I hate that his career has ended that way. So I don't think, I know you're picking Georgia, but, man, I'm not. I'm not right now.
Right. My preseason or pre-playoff team was for Georgia to win. I thought Georgia had enough experience in postseason and in these big games. And when they show up to play, there's not a team in this country, even Ohio State or Oregon or Texas. Georgia is a clearly dominant football team. I don't know the dynamics of how this football team plays and what level they perform with a backup quarterback. Carson Beck is needed. That's when they had Carson Beck. So I don't know if Georgia. This is a game changer for me as far as a backup quarterback. And I bring everybody back one year when, when we had 4 teams going to go into the playoffs, and Florida State lost their starting quarterback. And they were not even a top 10 team without their quarterback, with a new quarterback, a backup.
Yeah.
Does this change the same thing for Georgia? I don't know. I mean, Georgia gets behind. How do they come back?
Yeah. And, Chuck, I'm going to tell you something. I don't know. That's a hell of a question. But I'm going to say something that now, the bowl games that they're playing in will not reflect it because of these teams don't want to be there.
Right.
But if you ask me right now, if somebody told me, and you look at the playoffs and you look at the teams that are in it, you know who I think are the 4 best teams in the United States right now?
Okay. Who?
I'd say Oregon. I think that's pretty simple. I'm not going to put Georgia in there because of the quarterback situation. I'm going to say South Carolina. I'm going to say, God, and this makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit, Alabama. I have to say that really quietly because it makes me a little nauseous. And probably, who is the 4th team? Do you say Ohio State? Because I don't think you do after the Michigan thing.
No, I don't think you can say Ohio State. I think you have to say Texas because Texas twice to Georgia with their number 1 quarterback.
Yeah, and because but we have what we have. I'm so looking forward to hoping that Arizona State plays well. I'd love to see them. I love their coach. I love the way he carries himself. I love the fact that his kids get it. I love that. But man, Oregon's really good, Chuck. I think Oregon is really good. I know that I don't think you're sold on them, and I don't think that people in our world are sold on them. But I think they're pretty darn good. And if you're 13-0, you've done something. And they didn't play in the Pac-12; they played in the Big Ten.
Right. The accomplishment of Oregon, you can't diminish that. You can't take that away from them. No matter who was across the sidelines, they beat. They found a way to beat what I thought at the time was 1A and 1B. They beat Ohio State. So, Ohio State was 1B and Oregon was 1A. They played it at Oregon. It was a 1-point game.
Yeah.
Way it rolls. It's just something about Oregon I can't put my finger on that I'm not like. They're not that dominant, but yet they've done what they're supposed to do. And I love Dan Lanning.
Yes.
He's one of the premier coaches coming up through the ranks. A very young man, 38, I think he is, 39, something like that. But yeah, I agree with all that. I think that this is a time, right, where teams can say, you get an opportunity to prove what you're worth. Now, if Georgia bows out in the quarterfinals, it's not that Georgia was a bad football team. It's that the luck of the draw was bad luck. They lost a quarterback. When you lose your quarterback, if he's not going to be able to play, then it's just the way things happen. It's the cards were not in your favor.
Yeah.
I think Tennessee can have a lot to say if they beat Ohio State. I think Indiana has a lot to say if they beat Notre Dame. I don't think Notre Dame, because, if they beat Indiana, then I don't think we consider them because of the, you got to look at, they didn't really were tested in a schedule. Okay. But the fact is that Penn State just has this knack, their head coach, along with Ohio State's coach, can't win the big game, whereas the Ohio State coach can't win against Michigan, but beats the hell out of everybody else. Just can't beat Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm saying if this locker room is brought back, because they had to, remember, I sent you that article there was a team meeting during the week after the Michigan game, and it wasn't pleasant.
No, it
was loud, angry, divisive, vitriol, and it was pointed at Day, and Day came back at him. So in other words, he wasn't caving to his players. Now I'm wondering where this team is at. Okay, so again, we'll find out tomorrow night.
And Chuck, at the bottom of the screen, there's a question there from, and I hate when I mispronounce names. I hate when I do that. Ephraim Tice. Yeah. How about Oregon's path to the championship versus Georgia? I'm not going to disagree. I am not going to disagree with that.
No, I mean, Oregon earned the right to be number one. They're going to give the easier path for Oregon to get to the Natty, my opinion.
They didn't. I disagree.
Well,
I think Oregon got screwed to the in the seedings.
Who goes out to the Rose Bowl? The winner of the Tennessee-Ohio State game. This is on the same time frame for Oregon. It's just right down from Oregon down to California. It's not that big of a drive. I think that they're rested, they're healthy, and if they've already played Oregon State on the home field,
But I'm not talking about location, though, Chuck. I'm talking about opponents. How can the number one seed is going to get Tennessee or Ohio State?
Right, but David,
that ain't, and Georgia's going to get probably on. And all joking aside, the two bottom teams in this are Notre Dame. To me, are Notre Dame and Indiana.
I get all what you're saying.
I hate that.
But I'm telling you is that the number one team has already beaten Ohio State. Oregon has already beaten Ohio State. So matchup is that they're 1 point better. They're slightly better. And there was no bump in the road for Oregon. So in other words, that machine is just momentum. It's revving up. Whereas Ohio State had a flat tire in the Michigan. If Tennessee goes out there, if Oregon starts splashing around the Rose Bowl, throwing the ball and putting up points like a video game, Tennessee can't play out in a parking lot. They have to play in a phone booth. So I think it's advantageous in both games or both opponents, whether it's Ohio State or Tennessee. Oregon has an easier path than I think, and that's because they're number one. Now, Georgia, the path they set for Georgia is that they won't play in the cold. They'll go down to the Sugar Bowl, and I think they can get there. If it's whether it's Notre Dame or Indiana, because I think neither team has the athletes that Georgia has. Georgia can run the football against either one of them because they have better speed, they have better athletes. No, there's no, they have a defense that when they want to play, can play. You know what I'm saying?
I get it, but I still, again, and our friend right here says, Chuck, come on, man. Basically, no way, Chuck. So I tend to agree with Ephraim. As far, and we talked about this when the seedings came out that day. But more so, we were going, what the heck? But hey, look, at the end of the day, if you're going to win the national championship, you better play somebody.
Right. Georgia now has to play without a starting, their starting quarterback without Carson.
And that's a big deal.
And they're pedestrian on the offensive side with their backup, the kid from Raven Gap High School in just inside the Georgia line. So I think right now, if Georgia had Carson back, I think Georgia is a lot because I was picking Georgia.
Yeah, but I'm going to change gears a little bit and get away from the CFP. And we've got, because I got to get back to work, so we got about 8 minutes left. The good guys, and again, years ago, if you'd have asked me if I'd have said a good guy, my answer was no, because I loathed this guy. But through the years and through conversations and through growing up and kind of understanding what was going on, I've grown to admire and respect Dave Clawson a lot. And for him to turn around and just walk away at Wake goes back again to the state of the landscape of college football, because he had a good deal going there. But I think it's frustrating to get these kids and work your butt off and recruit these kids and get them in your program and get them when they're playing really well and you develop them, and then they go, hey, peace out, I'm out. I'm going to go make me some money. And leave you to go to another school, and he walked away this week, shockingly, because there were things that you and I know that were in place for other things to happen, and so for him to shockingly, to me, walk away, it says a lot about the landscape of where we are. And you're down there in Winston. Right. I don't know that you have your season tickets this year, but you've got an eye on the program. So I hate that.
Yeah, he's one of the great guys, not good guys, one of the great guys in college football. And so it seems to be that veteran coaches that are into their 50s and 60s are saying, I'm not dealing with this anymore. I don't know how I see this, if anybody's going to stand up. Our discussion about a couple of weeks ago is that there's always a response to something, but right now we've got other issues in our country figuring what direction we're going to go. So, and I've always said this to you, what do they do when the money dries up? The money's going to dry up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so what are they going to do when the money dries up and it's not, we can't print more, or we can't get, you got to figure this thing out. And I just think that losing Clawson, we lost one of the great guys. He followed the rules. He was ethical. He was sometimes too ethical for college football. But we at Wake Forest were proud of the fact that, come Monday, guess what? We knew was happening. Those football players were going to class. They were going to class. They don't have dummy classes at Wake Forest. So they have a great tutorial program to where kids that are playing football are struggling, they get them the help immediately, and they're on top of everything. But they're recruiting kids who can handle the academics. And that's, they immediately hired. This was so odd. I never seen that fast of a turnaround of hiring a coach that was not on your staff.
I
When
think
he stepped down, to our shock and why, they hired the Washington State coach.
Yeah, and I think, Chuck, probably Dave has been talking to them privately for a while.
Right.
And the guy from Washington State, to me, is a great hire, a great hire. Let me say that one more time. Let me emphasize that. I think it's a great hire. He is a phenomenal football coach who handled one. He at Oregon State, those two programs, those two football coaches handled probably the worst situation that anybody could be thrown in the last 12 months and continue to do things right. I think it's a great hire by the Deacons. But I do believe that they knew ahead of time what was happening.
Right. I think when you look at the coaches, age has a factor because it seems to be the older coaches are looking at, I'm not doing this. Whereas this kid is young. I mean, this young man, he's a young man that's taken over Washington State, Dinker, something like that. And he is so energetic, but he is also, when he goes into the portal, he says, we can't just go and grab talent. We got to go and grab people who fit the mission of what Wake Forest is about. We have to look at the academic side. Can they handle the rigors of the academia? And all he has to do is be 3 games better than Clawson was this year. And that is be either 6-6 or 7-5 and maintain the academic status of what true college football is about. And the fans down here, that myself included, that's all we want.
I'm going to make a different statement. I agree with what you're saying, except for this. Do they have a lot of the gate receipts that everybody else has? No. Do they have they've got money.
Oh, they got a lot of money.
They've got more money probably, and this includes Duke. They've got more money than anyone in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Let me tell you something. They sold billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars of cigarettes. Don't you? That's who built that university?
R.J. Reynolds.
You bet your butt. And I believe that they're going to open up the purse strings, and they want, because I've always said in basketball in particular, the ACC is better when Duke, State, Carolina, and Wake play well. And I think the ACC will be better if Wake has a good competitive football program. And I think that in this environment that you're in today, it's not about your history. It's about who has the most money.
Right.
And, you were talking about Sacramento State. Who in the world heard about Sacramento State football? But it's been verified, not just rumor. They've got $50 million that they're going to spend on their football team.
Right.
So it's a different world. It's a different environment. And I think it's a great hire. And I think that people like Coach Clawson are going, man, I'm done. I can't do this. Now, do I think he'll coach again? Absolutely. He's going to stay at the university, and he's working with the athletic department and the president of the university. So he'll be there a year, maybe 2, but I think he'll coach again. And wherever he goes, they're going to do it the right way, and they're going to win.
Well, Dan Mullins was similar in that he was a Division III graduate, played football at a Division III school, and he was very academic minded. Even when he was offensive coordinator on the Urban Meyer, he was just, and then he got the Mississippi State job, and things didn't work out. Well, he went from 3-4 years at the booth to where he got now the UNLV job. Guys sometimes have to cleanse themselves. They need a step back, change of perspective. what I'm doing right now, I'm in a rut, so on and so forth. So they have to step back and get that perspective. Do I want to coach again? And if that
Yep.
answer is yes, it may take a couple, 2-3 years, like Dan Mullins, who's going to UNLV, which shocked me. It doesn't
But-
fit where I thought Mullins should end up being.
Well, I'm going to throw this out there, and you mull this over. Mullins, mull. Before the environment that we're in now, in the infrastructure of college sports, and we're talking about football today. Before this landscape had happened, was Dan Mullins ever going to be the coach at UNLV? Hell no. There's no way. You're not going to go from Florida. You're not going to go from Mississippi State. You're not going to be the head coach at UNLV. No. But in today's landscape, he's got a chance to compete for a national championship.
Right.
Because they're going to have money. They've got money. And they're going to spend it. I mean, there's no way on earth that guy would have ever been the coach at UNLV. Never. He would not even have taken an interview with them. But now, the way it is now, you got a chance.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's ever more chance in the up and coming years because there's this push to maybe immediately go to 14 or 16 teams instead of 12 because, I thought we would eliminate the bitching and the arguing and the upset teams and hurt feelings when we went from 4 to 8 or 4 to 12. And I thought, okay, no way we're going to have it. We had it worse this year.
Well, they'll go to 16 teams because they're crying in Tuscaloosa.
Well, true.
Bottom line,
I knew
bottom freaking line.
Combination of when the SEC network led by Paul Feinbaum, who were just, put diapers on the people. They were whining and complaining because they weren't going to get 5 teams in. Now they're paid to be proponents of the SEC. So the telling the truth or being true, intellectually honest, you're not going to get that out of anybody at a network. They're going to, ACC's the same way. Okay. But they were going overboard and it never stopped. It was incessant all the time about whining and bitching about not getting 5 teams and Alabama deserves to be in. And here's the bottom line is that, you're going to have this push. Now, whether it's a successful push is a different story, but they're trying to push for at least 2 more teams or 16 teams. Okay. So we're going to
16,
whatever
16 makes the brackets right.
But here's the thing. You still got to win your games.
Yep. You still
Alabama lost 3 games. And I told John Truitt this, when Alabama, 8 of the 9 games, because they played really close and barely won at home against South Carolina. So 8 of their 9 wins, they played like a number 1 team. But in their 3 losses, they sucked. You can't make a 12-team playoff if you can't put it together all the time. Or I get 1 slip up, but not 3. You follow what I'm saying? Okay.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, Alabama was whining and crying, and Paul Feinbaum's making fun of everybody else. That's fine. When they needed to win the games, everybody else, they won.
And if we were sitting here and you took your heart out of it and you just looked at the football stuff sitting here on December the 20th, you would probably, most of us would say Oregon, South Carolina, Alabama, and Texas should in a 14 are the best teams right now at this stage juncture. But anyway, Chuck, it's been fascinating. Really looking forward to tonight. My daughter, she's going to really get mad when she hears this. We've got a big family Christmas function tomorrow. The whole family at 5:00. At 5:00. So I had a choice to make. Yes, I'm going because I love my family, and okay, but because I've got my YouTube TV,
Mhm.
I'm going to be sitting in the corner. I'm gonna Thank you, Brooke. It's all your fault when everybody hates me. It's my daughter's fault. So look, I think it's going to be a good weekend. I'm really excited to see what happens with the weather. More the wind than any of precipitation. I think the wind is going to be the deciding factor in 2 football games tomorrow, or one tonight and one tomorrow. Any final thoughts before we get off here today?
No, all the bitching's going to stop. We're starting tonight with the start of the 4 first round games, and 3 tomorrow. And I think they're all evenly matched. I think they're going to be exciting games. So no, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that now's the guesswork is all going to be put away. Is that you're going to have a chance to prove it on the football field, and that's fine with me.
That's right. And pitchers and catchers report pretty soon.
And
the evil empire, the evil empire, the New York Yankees, and yes, that's what they are. I think that they got better by subtracting Soto. I think that the Bellinger is a much better pickup for them than Soto, because defense, he'll do with a short right field porch, he'll do well, but defensively he is an elite defensive player at 4 positions.
I get that. I agree with you on that.
Elite.
I agree with you on that. But what the beauty of baseball is all about is you and I disagree on Bellinger. It doesn't matter. You know, he'll either go out and play and make you right, or he'll go out and play and make me right. But we're on the opposite side. But 162 games, you pretty soon will forget about Bellinger and worry about our own teams and the excitement of Major League Baseball.
And really looking forward to baseball this year. And it's going to be we're going to take the Orioles and the Tigers as our futures picks for the playoffs and World Series in the American League. And if we decided we're going to do the Reds, because
I can't go through and look at teams and say, because we don't want we're when we play a futures pick, I don't want to pick a favorite. You know, and win 2-1 or 3 times a month. I'm looking at that 13, 18, 33 to 1.
That's
that
it.
Long shot. And I think Cincinnati's got the best with their new manager.
Yeah, and plus, the Chicago White Sox cost me $1 million. My last year, they cost me $1 million, and I was done by April the 21st. We were finished. Well, so before I sign off. Before we sign off, let's do this for all of our southern teams that are traveling to the cold weather, because I like to hear the laugh.
You like the snow?
No.
Why not? Can you say snow?
Chuck, I'll see you, my friend. Have a good day, and let's get the heck out of here.
All right, later.